Hello and welcome to Just Hoops. In today's video, we're going to dive into one of the main defensive ball screen coverages seen throughout the NBA, the drop coverage. First things first, what exactly is drop coverage? In this clip here, you'll see Joel Embiid is in a drop. He's below the level of the screen, he's retreating back to the rim, and that is essentially what a drop is. It gives the big an opportunity to sink back, protect the paint, and force tough twos. This is seen throughout the NBA at forcing quote-unquote inefficient shots. To have some numbers to add to what an inefficient shot is, league average from mid-range is 30.7%, short mid-range is 20.7%, which includes floaters. So the NBA, due to the amount of layups and threes that teams want to get, going into a drop coverage could definitely force and inhibit offenses from getting those high efficient looks. So with that being said, in today's video, we're going to dive into these four players and see how they all utilize drop coverage and what makes them successful, starting with Joel Embiid. In terms of where Joel Embiid positions himself on the floor in ball screen situations, tends to align with the box or lane, whatever you want to call it, on the floor. Typically, when he drops, you can see throughout all these clips that he does a really good job at using the lane as his cue. It's where he guards. He'll float to the elbows. He'll use the lane line as where he'll slide to stop drives. He'll sit at the nail and really make an offensive player struggle at getting deep paint. Here against the Suns, you can see he floats in that elbow area, preventing Devin Booker from getting downhill, and then he drops back to his. You'll see here against Dallas, it's two ball screens in one possession. First one, it's against Luka. He floats to that elbow area again, and then against Dinwiddie, he is sitting at the elbow nail area, preventing Dinwiddie from getting downhill in the middle of the floor. This positioning makes it very tough for offensive players to first get deep paint, and secondly, get a rhythmic two-point shot in the mid-range. But next, let's talk more about the drop in terms of how Joel Embiid drops. You can see that he commits to stopping the ball. He gets his chest in front of the drive. He does a really good job at guarding the ball first. You saw it here against Middleton, and now against the Heat in this clip, you can see he puts his whole chest in front of Jimmy Butler. He guards him. That is his man until the ball returns. He takes it personal at stopping that initial attack, and it's huge in why he is successful. With his size, length, and athletic ability, it makes it very tough for an offensive player to find an advantage. In this clip here against Phoenix, you can see that he puts his chest in front of Chris Paul. He guards him for that split second before the ball gets back out. And then in the second ball screen, he does the same thing. He sees where Chris Paul's going, he's pointing, he's active, and he guards him. He forces Chris Paul into a very tough two in the mid. And then lastly, the recovery. Joel Embiid tends to recover short. He's able to use his length and size as a tool at contesting shots. And if somebody drives against him, as you saw in that clip, he is mobile and athletic enough to guard when the pop or short roll goes to attack on the bounce. But in terms of closing out to a pop, you can see that he does a really good job at utilizing his length and staying short. This allows him to guard if the ball gets put on the floor and also affect the shot. He is very active in terms of returning. He likes preventing paint though, so you can see that he does tend to stay back a little bit, and that's part of why he's staying short. He's trying to, if the ball moves, be in a position where he can make a play and be in a spot where he could help his team get a stop at this end of the floor. Now let's dive into Rudy Gobert in drop coverage. To start, we're going to also talk about his positioning. When a ball screen is set, Gobert is much higher on the floor than Joel Embiid was. He tends to be around the three-point line, and if it's a deeper ball screen, he will start at the level. He's a lot higher on the floor and then retreats back. You can see that this allows him to kind of clog situations much higher on the floor and make it a lot more tough for an offensive player to find an angle, to find an attack, and he's able to utilize his length and athletic ability to contest shots further out, while also giving the defender at the point of attack more time to recover and get back in front. How Gobert positions himself at the beginning of a ball screen attack really allows him to utilize his physical abilities to make plays. So now, in terms of the drop with Gobert, He does a really good job at containing the bounce on the retreat. As he retreats back to the rim, he is one of, if not the best big in the NBA at just clogging space. He does a really good job at using his length, using his athletic ability to clog up the paint, clog up the middle of the floor, and make things tough. Gobert's activity in the drop is incredible. You can see his hands are always out and active. He's ready to make a play at the point. He's also really ready to drop back and contain and prevent those deep paint touches. The speed at which Gobert is able to retreat backwards is actually incredible, and it's really fascinating to watch in terms of his ability to retreat while stopping the ball and preventing a roll from getting a good attempt. Now, to finish things off with Rudy Gobert, we're going to talk about his ability to recover. For Gobert, in terms of recovering, he is just so active and energetic and just gives it his all at getting back out to a pop. Yes, this is a controversial part of his game in terms of teams going 5 out and just trying to attack Gobert in pick and pop situations, but Gobert gives a phenomenal effort at getting out after committing to stopping a deep drive, getting out short, using his length, using his athleticism to guard on the bounce, guard jump shots, and he makes it very tough on these guys to score. You saw his points per possession was .77 in ball screen attacks, and this includes shots by the roll man. So he is successful in doing so, and I think that you can see throughout these clips that his ability to just give great effort, use his length, use his athleticism, allows him to be successful in doing so. Now, let's talk about Jarrett Allen in drop coverage situations. Now with positioning with Jarrett Allen, it's a little bit different than the first two guys. He positions himself in a spot where he is non-committal. This will come up again in terms of how he drops, but it's typically in a spot where he is between the screener and the attack. He has presence on both sides of a ball screen. This ability to stay in an area where he can play both is going to come up next in the drop, but you can see that he stays pretty in line with the screener in a spot where he's like an arm's distance and a half from the screener, roughly about a step or two off of the screen, with about a quarter of his body getting in front of the attack. Here against Atlanta, you can see he just steps back away from the screen. He's not committing to Trae Young, but he's not committing to the roll. This positioning allows him to drop the way he does and be highly successful in these drop coverage ball screen defensive situations. So to talk about the drop, you know how I use the word non-committal in terms of how he positions himself? When it comes to the drop, he plays that cat and mouse game. He tries to play both guys. He puts himself in a spot where he is able to make a play on the ball and also recover and get back to the roll and make a play there. As a defender, you can see that he is able to play both the ball and the roll by giving himself angles. He drops to spots on the floor where this is a possibility. He doesn't drop to necessarily get right in front of the ball or to get back to the roll man. This positioning allows this cat and mouse, allows the ball to be indecisive, allows the roll to maybe get a little aggravated at not getting touches. Here against Indy, you can see how he puts himself directly deep in the paint, being in a spot where he can play the attack and also play the roll. Here against Philly, you'll see a pretty similar situation. He goes in between James Harden and Joel Embiid in that initial screen, and now in the second screen with Maxey, he's fairly in line with Joel, but he has to make a play at the point and does so. So to wrap things up with Jarrett Allen, his ability to recover is phenomenal in drop situations. You can see his non-committal nature of being able to play that cat and mouse with ball allows him to get out, use his length, use his athleticism to contest shots, and also guard the attack. Here against Christian Wood, he closes out short, is able to get a good contest on the pump fake, but stays low and guards the drive. Here against Philly, you'll see that he's able to stay in a position where he stops the drive, closes out short, uses his length to contest Joel Embiid. Here against the Pelicans, you can see he deep drops. He does his job at getting deep in the paint, makes a play on the ball, kind of, sort of, but also has himself an angle to get out to the shooter and contest there. The way Jarrett Allen allows himself to be positioned on the floor allows him to make plays both on the ball and the screener, making him so successful in these spots. Now, to wrap things up, let's talk about Jonas Valanciunas in drop coverage. So, in terms of how Jonas positions himself at the point of a ball screen. He's around a step or two off the screen, tends to be in an area that's directly between the ball and the screener. This area allows him to just make a play. He's in a spot where it is tough for an offensive player to drive, but it's also tough for an offensive player to get it to the roll and for the roll to make a play. This positioning in that middle zone of a ball screen attack is what allows him to be successful in how he drops. We'll talk more about the drop next, but this middle ground that he plays is what allows him to make plays at the defensive end of the floor. But now to talk more about the drop, he is highly active and really good at this cat and mouse stunt game. He does a good job at being active with his hands, active with his feet, making those little subtle movements toward the ball. Here against Paul George, you can see he's dropping back, he's stunting with the left side of his body while also retreating to the rim. This is a good mix and blend of what Gobert does and what Jarrett Allen does. I think that Jonas's ability to be active in terms of his just fakes and stunts at the ball is what makes it really tough for an offensive player to find an advantage in ball screen situations. This gray area game, this cat and mouse, is what makes drops so successful at the end of the day. So Jonas's ability to be this guy, be in the gray area, be something that is hard for an offensive player to truly read, is very successful and is what can make Jonas Valanciunas and the Pelicans good in the long term. But to wrap things up, his ability to recover. He is not the most quick, mobile, and athletic big in the NBA, but he uses what he got. He is active, energetic, and gives phenomenal effort at recovering out to shooters. His ability to play that cat and mouse, play that gray area, allows him to have an angle at both, making a play at the ball and also making a play at the pop, short, or even dive. His ability just to give that extra effort, get back to his and be solid. He might not be able to stay in front of the quickest guys in the NBA at his position, but he does a good job at knowing what he is capable of, being closing out short, being in an area where he can slide one or two times, make a play. Here against the Cavs, you can see he closes out, understands it's a shooter, and he just makes the right read, contesting heavily. Here against Minnesota, he does the same thing. He's in the gray area with D'Lo, comes out to the pop, and gets a hot hand on Cat. To conclude, the drop coverage is one of the most utilized defensive coverages in ball screen situations in the association. These four guys are high level at it. They're able to make plays for their team to win games in these spots, and I hope this video shed some light on the differences in how to drop and what can make somebody successful as a drop cover big. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, learned something about defense at the highest levels. For more content like this, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you in the next one.